What is going on, everybody? So, third video in this series for setting up Django with Nginx on DigitalOcean. So let's pick right back up where we left off. So we're going to start up Visual Studio Code. Visual. There we go. And it's remembering my last session here. If you have multiple, click down here, connect to host, and we want a demo. We'll expand that out. And if you're a little lost here, go back to the first video in this playlist, and that'll walk through setting up your non-root user and making your config file. Okay. And control the little tick symbol under the escape key to get a terminal here. I don't need hello.txt anymore, just do some housekeeping. Again, we are not in a virtual environment, but we did create one in the last video, so we will just source. If you put a slash in front, it thinks you're going from the root of the file system, and activate. Okay. So now that we have that going, we can go ahead and start our Django project. And here we are. We'll just need to change a few of these. That little squiggly line is my home directory. In this case, it's /home/Gary. So Django, I'm just going to call that site. And I want that to be in Django demo, the directory with our virtual environment in it up there. It doesn't have to be, but just helps keep things organized. And let me make sure I have that syntax right. That looks correct. All right. Now, if we expand this out, we see that we have our virtual environment, and we also have this new Django project with all these nice files that Django creates for us. All right. So it wants us to open up settings.py and add the allowed hosts. Okay. Well, you could do that, but it's easy here with VS Code. We'll just go to settings, and we need allowed hosts. We're going to want localhost. Localhost being the machine that we are currently on. And then we also want to add the IP address of the server that we're on. And we can check that from the droplet we made. And that looks good. I'll Control S to save that and close that out. We have that piece done. Okay. That just goes through the explanation of why. And we also need to add this to databases. And let's see. Copy that. So looks like that name is going to be the database we created. User is going to be the database user we created. The password, I left it as password, so we don't need to change that. And probably if you leave that blank, that's just going to be the default, which I believe is 5432. So let's see, database. All right. We We just need to replace this. By default, it's going to use SQLite 3, which is a nice database, but not suitable for production. And if you want to play around a lot. So I called that Django. And if I remember correctly, I messed up and called him Django user. Alright, and that looks good. Control S again to save. Not going to close it this time in case we need to update something else, and we do. We need to tell this where to look for the static files. So we can just add this to the very end. All right. We don't necessarily need to do that now, but let's go ahead and do it. Make migrations is just going to set up the schemas, tables, all that good stuff in Postgres. And actually that's probably good to do. It'll let us know if we have any errors when we gave it our database name, our credentials, the password, all that good stuff. So for this, I'm going to actually kind of go off script and just go into Django site. Oh, it was up one. And manage.py, make migrations, and manage.py migrate. Fingers crossed. All right. So we had the database name, the database user password, all that good stuff correct. If you get errors here, you're probably going to want to go back into settings, come back here to databases, double check the database name, the database user, the password. You can always go into Postgres, just below that database away, the user away, redo it there so you don't have to start from scratch. All right, moving on. Next we want to create a superuser. So let's go ahead and do that. And we need to do dot, meaning the current directory, slash that we want to run, manage.py. Horrible practice, I'm going to say admin. And password admin. Very nice, because if you're just playing around, it's too common, it's too short, it's not complex, it's not a good password in any way, shape, or form. You want to do it anyway? Yeah. All right. So, because we were a non-root user, but we're in the sudoer group, we can go ahead and make a rule to allow the unified firewall to allow port 8000 traffic, which is what we're going to run here, saying, all addresses port 8000 goes to Django. And if you see rule added, IPv6 or just v6, that ran successfully. And we can copy that. And because I'm already in the directory with manage.py, I just run it like that. And I don't know if it does this by default or just because I do it so often, but if you notice this port here, That's actually saying, hey, you're connected through SSH to this machine, and it's exposing port 8000. And you know what? That's going to loop back or forward it to my machine. So usually localhost means, hey, it's this machine that I'm on. But because of the port forward, I can get to it from here. And if we go, this is going to be our IP address of our server that's running out there in the cloud on DigitalOcean. And we can just go there. But when you do a URL or an IP, by default, it's looking for port 80. And we are running on port 8000. And what we can also do is we can go to the admin route. And the only reason I know about that route is because I've played around with this. And here we can go admin, admin, and we are in the admin console, admin page. I don't know the correct phrasing of that. And you can see the traffic coming in here. And that, again, was when we created the Superuser here. And set admin, username and password. All right. So that's all well and good. That's setting up Gunicorn. Yeah, we'll actually go ahead and do that. All right. And I was just peeking ahead. This does get a little bit confusing because Gunicorn is in our virtual environment. So we need to be in our virtual environment. The rest of this is outside of it. I don't know if it's necessary to deactivate, but I'm just going to go ahead and follow the guide. So Control C here to stop that, and Control Shift V. Let's see. Actually, that's not right. Okay, that will work. What that's doing here. Let me run that, and all right, and that worked. Notice it's the directory dot WSGI. So if you're getting errors here, what that's doing is that's actually a directory dot a Python file. And if we go ahead and go into the Django site, we see this is actually calling this file. So Gunicorn, Python library, it's running, and it is binding all internet addresses to port 8000, and then that's some type of configuration there. All right, so now that that ran, we can deactivate and get out of our virtual environment. We know that because we don't see it listed there, prepended to the front of our terminal there. And we need to edit Gunicorn.socket. And what does it want us to put in there? This stuff, which honestly I don't understand, but I know it needs it to run. We can Control X, Y, Enter. There we go. And looks like we need to modify that file here. Actually, just out of curiosity, I want to see if it's creating the files or modifying one that already exists. Okay, so it is modifying one that already exists. So that must have been created when we ran Gunicorn. And it is blank. So we'll just put this in here. All right. Oh, I left a little too soon. So it wants us to add that and that. So could have scrolled down. That's why it's good to read ahead sometimes. And let's make some room there. Some things we will need to change. User, that is your Ubuntu non-root sudoer user that we created. It's going to want the location of our Django app or our Django project, and that's going to be Django demo. Change that again to Gary. Django demo. Let's see. Okay, and that's actually looking for our virtual environment. So in this case, we named it Django env. Just going to peek back here. And then again that WSGI file. Almost missed that. Django demo. Django demo. Oh, actually, I might need to change that a bit. Let's see, did I roll that up in that one? So, double check here, making sure that these actually exist. So that's the Django site. Oh, Django demo. Django env bin. Okay, and that's Gunicorn, that's good. Django demo. Okay, we'll need to add another piece there. Let's see if we can get away with the Django site. Well, we'll see the errors when we run into them. And all right, we just need to start. Socket, and we need to enable it. All right. And it should be running. All right. And it just wants to make sure that this was actually created. And the good output proxy there. You see what would happen if we gave it a file that didn't exist. So we are good. Let's see. Next, we're going to run a few tests here. Control L, give ourselves a little bit more space. Inactive dead. Okay, so it looks like that's to be expected. I'm guessing that it wants this as the trigger. All right, now it's active. And if it's your first time seeing a screen like this, don't panic, just hit Q. And if you ever find yourself stuck in Vim, :Q. So there we are. Let's see. Check the logs. I don't really care about that. We'll go ahead and reload. Never hurts. All right. Now, configure Nginx to proxy pass to Gunicorn. Just copy that. Again, Control L will give ourselves some space. Let's just CD there first. Okay, so we're actually creating this. And I'm just going to call this the Django site. And let's see, let's make sure we don't have a bunch of things to run here. All right, that's why I'm scrolling down now. It's better just to grab all this at once. And change them all. Server domain or IP. So we want the IP of our droplet. Let's check that here. And plug that in. Let's see, I may have messed up the structure, but if we run into that, that's probably a good demonstration of how to troubleshoot. But we will get to that in a moment if we need to. Let me double check here that we copied and pasted everything correctly. All right. So we'll Control X to save that. And now it looks like we're making a symbolic link. All right. And notice here the sites available. I thought I saw that in another configuration here. Yeah, that's what we called this one here, where we just put that. So we want to just make sure those names match. So that was the Django site. So here, the Django site. And All right, let's see if we get any errors. All right, I see OK and successful. That's a promising sign. We're going to restart the Nginx service. And all right. Okay, so we're opening up port 80 and we're deleting the 8000. Okay, so the Django's a web server. Why do we need Nginx and Gunicorn? And why are we getting rid of the port that it runs on? So Nginx is super fast at serving up static files, is the way I understand it. And when traffic comes in, it's going to, by default, hit that port 80. But it's going to intercept that traffic, Nginx's, and it's going to feed that to the Django web server behind the scenes. And actually, I believe it's going to go to Gunicorn, which has a few different workers ready to serve up content. So in case you are getting a lot of traffic, there's not a bottleneck of the web server trying to serve it. It has those cached files in all of the Gunicorn workers. So if, just as a small example, two people are cruising around your web pages and a third person starts accessing, they're not sharing that same kind of that same worker. It's going to distribute them. So let's go ahead and copy this and we'll run those together. All right, moment of truth. Let's see if port 80 is working. All right. And let's see. Anything else we need to do? The rest of this is just troubleshooting. So I'm going to leave it there. I will put a great online course that's free from Harvard, CS50 Web. That really dives into developing Django applications and just how Django works. Honestly, I'm not really too familiar with Django. I was just kind of doing this for my own amusement. One tip I would have is if you start making apps in Django and you're saving those files on your droplet and you're going to the web page and you notice it's serving some of the files that you updated but it's not showing the updates, go ahead and restart Gunicorn. I ran into that a week or so ago, and you would just do that like this. Gunicorn, getting quite a bit of lag, and I'm not really great at spelling in general, so yeah. And also when you're developing in Django, you are going to want to be in your virtual environment. And that was Django env bin, and to deactivate it at any time. A lot of cool stuff you can play around with. You can make APIs. You could make it so people can register. You can get user data. You can look at the logs of who's accessing your web server. But if you're going that route, you're probably going to want to purchase a domain, put a certificate on it, so you're not getting the not secure warning there. But hopefully this helps some of you out there. If you wanted to start playing with the Django, if you run into any issues, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. I'll see if I can help. As always, if there's any topics you want me to cover, most of the things I explore have to do with data engineering, but I like learning about all kinds of stuff. So throw them out there. I'll see if I can put together some videos. And that's it for this playlist, and I will see you in another video.